Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TMRP, the Metropolis Radio podcast. Now, this week we've got some exciting news to talk about regarding Netflix and other streaming services. So, without further delay, let's just get right into this week's episode. And we're going to start off with a very big piece of news, and that is Oscar Isaac is coming in as Moon Knight in the new Disney Plus series, happily titled Moon Knight. Now, at the time that I'm recording this, Oscar Isaac is only in talks with Marvel and Disney to portray Mark Spector, aka Moon Knight. Now, what we do know for a fact, though, is that Jeremy Slater, the developer of Netflix's Umbrella Academy, has been tapped to be the lead writer for the show. And personally, I'm not against Oscar Isaac taking the role. I actually liked Oscar Isaac in the sequel trilogy. He was probably one of the only redeeming factors of it. And he wasn't terrible as Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse as well. Now, originally, this series was rumored to have Daniel Radcliffe take on the role as, Mark Spector, aka Moon Knight. Well, we now know that that was dead wrong back in April when I did my MCU Infinity Saga retrospective when I looked ahead to Phase 4. Now, speaking of that, of that video, my concerns in that, still stand with regards to Moon Knight. In the sense that, if you've ever read Moon Knight, you would know that Moon Knight is just a much more violent version of Batman. And that's what drew so many people to this character, because whereas where Batman refuses to kill, Moon Knight isn't against that. And with this being a Disney Plus series, my main concern is how much are they going to tone down the violence? Sorry, guys, had some caught in my throat. But still, how much are they going to tone down the violence? Because, Disney has openly said they don't want any R-rated content on Disney Plus. Well, Moon Knight for many, many years fell under the Marvel Knights brand, which was their R-rated superheroes brand that included people like Ghost Rider, The Punisher, obviously Moon Knight. And as of right now, I can't think of anything else. I think Elektra was under... Daredevil was actually under Marvel Knights for quite a while. And I think Elektra was too, but don't quote me on that. And honestly, what's gonna suck is if Disney does tone down the violence and they just make the series look like it would have been better served going to Hulu because on Hulu you can make the show as violent as you want without, any repercussions because, we don't want any R-rated content on here. But before I tangent, let's move on to our next main topic, and that is that Bond 25, No Time to Die, actually explored a sale to streaming services. Apparently, MGM was exploring the idea of selling the 25th James Bond movie to a streaming service and just bypassing theaters altogether. Now, this being reported by The Hollywood Reporter, Apple had apparently made an offer of $350 to $400 million for a 12-month license to the movie. And MGM was looking for anywhere between $650 and $800 million reportedly. Again, none of this has been really confirmed. Now, and if we look at, that $650 to $800 million figure that they wanted, let's look at the overall costs for MGM. The movie costed $250 million to make. They're saying it was about $50 million to market. You have, licensing fees that have to be paid to United Artists and Universal. Universal has the international distribution rights to the movie. Also, Daniel Craig, Rami Malek, and the director, Cary Fukunaga, have the box office bonus deals, aka the backdoor deals, which is not surprising for a franchise movie. Especially, for your two main leads and your director, where you'll agree to take a pay cut initially, but in exchange that you'll get 2 to 5% of the box office take. They also have what are they called? Not merchandising, and not even sponsors. It's a product placement from companies like Heineken that were expecting a theatrical release. So if MGM wanted to put this movie onto a streaming service, and I know some people have been reporting that, look, this deal could go through, I don't think so. Because MGM would have to renegotiate with so many different parties involved that it may just not be worth the time. And, MGM was hoping that, Bond 25 would be $1 billion blockbuster. And let's be honest, Spectre wasn't $1 billion box office movie. It made about $880 million worldwide. The only Daniel Craig Bond film that crossed the $1 billion mark, as far as I know, was a Skyfall. And I think that had more to do with the fact that that was the 50th anniversary of James Bond and not really the fact that it was a good movie. Even though, in my opinion, Skyfall was the only good Daniel Craig James Bond movie. But I don't want to tangent for too long. Now, apparently they had tried to sell this to Netflix, and a top executive at Netflix said, quote, "Bond is a one-shot kill, but is it worth it? You'd be setting up a need for a Bond-like movie once a month, and for $500 million or more, it's not worth it. You're better off focusing on your own originals," which for Netflix, with all the problems that they've been having with canceling very successful shows that cost them too much money, they're having a bunch of money problems because they've been spending too much and their shows have been going too niche, so they can't exactly afford the $650 to $800 million that MGM is asking for. Now, a quote from that same, I think this was actually from the Variety article, was, quote, "MGM is suffering. Every major distributor at this point has a pile of unreleased expensive movies. The pile grows larger by the day," says Hal Vogel, CEO of Vogel Capital Research. These films are inventory. They are sitting there with no return on their investment. Even with low interest rates, the interest costs are piling up. So going the streaming route is not that crazy. You've spent the money and you're not getting it back anytime soon, which is a very good point, because even if you release Bond 25 direct to theaters, you're not guaranteed that it's going to be $1 billion movie. It may make a lot less. It might make enough to keep the creditors happy, but with the amount of money that you've invested, you don't make a $250 million movie to break even. You make a $250 million movie to hopefully make $1 billion in the theaters. And I brought this up in the second episode of TMRP in regards to the death of the blockbuster. This is the perfect example. If MGM needs this movie to break $1 billion just to break even and keep everybody happy, then that's not a really good business plan moving forward, because the market has now shifted so much that there may not be a market for the $100 to $200 million spectacle. You might have to go back and make the James Bond movies cheaper. Oh, poor babies, what are they ever going to do? Despite the fact that James Bond has never really been a special effects heavy series. And then the other problem with, Bond 25 going to streaming services is MGM only owns part of the James Bond franchise. Eon Productions, that's Everything or Nothing Productions, started by Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli back in the 60s. They actually own 50% of the James Bond franchise, and Barbara Broccoli, the daughter of the late Albert Broccoli, apparently didn't want this deal to happen because she is such a staunch traditionalist where, we are going to release this movie in the theaters come hell or high water. Now, to be fair to MGM, they have denied that this deal was even ever on the table, and I'm assuming because probably it didn't go through. And really, I'm only bringing this up here because it was reported in the trades, The Hollywood Reporter and Variety respectively. Had this been like Comic Book Resources or We Got This Covered or that other bullshit site that Bounding into Comics, I personally wouldn't have wasted my time on this, and I wouldn't have wasted your time as well. Why am I going to waste your time on a bunch of bullshit rumors that are probably not going to come true? But if it's in the trades, there's probably a little more validity to the story. So I think I've talked about Bond 25 a little too much, other than the fact that I've had no interest in this movie from the get-go, but that's a separate conversation for another time. Let's move on to our third main topic, and that is Simon Kinberg is going to produce and direct a new Battlestar Galactica movie. For those who don't know, Simon Kinberg is the same guy who's been behind a lot of the Fox X-Men movies for the last decade. I think he started with X-Men 3 The Last Stand, and as I'm recording this, let me verify that, because I know for a fact that he directed the last one. That was Dark Phoenix. Well, actually, that's not the last one. That was New Mutants. Sorry, I had a brain fart there, but internet's taking a while to load. Okay, let's look up how long he's been part of the X-Men. He actually, no, I apologize. He started with X-Men First Class, but still, most of you still probably know him from the Fox X-Men movies. And Battlestar Galactica is, to get back to Battlestar Galactica, it is one of those, holy grails of science fiction right now. And I would actually argue that that is because of the reboot series and not the original. Anyone who has ever seen the original will tell you that it is campy as shit. The original series created by Glenn A. Larson in the late 70s. I think it released in 78. And it only lasted one season because of a lawsuit from George Lucas at the time, basically citing that they basically stole a lot from Star Wars. But the lawsuit was ultimately dropped because the ABC and the guys behind Battlestar Galactica basically shot back with, well, George, you stole a lot from Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, so if those people behind Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers wanted to sue you, they probably could. But there was a sequel series to the 78 series called Galactica 1980. And like I said, most of you listening to this probably are not familiar with the original series at all. You're probably familiar with the 2004 series that premiered on the Sci-Fi Network and ran for 4 seasons up until 2009. And what most people don't remember is it started with a 3-episode miniseries that released back in 2003. And a reboot series of Battlestar Galactica is currently being developed with Sam Esmail. He was the creator of Mr. Robot, executive producing the series. Simon Kinberg is being joined by Dylan Clark. He was the producer behind The Rise of the Planet of the Apes and, all those movies. And Simon Kinberg said, quote, Battlestar Galactica is one of those holy grails in science fiction, and I couldn't be more excited about bringing something new to the franchise while honoring what's made it so iconic and enduring. I'm so grateful that Dylan and my partners at Universal have trusted me with this incredible universe. Now, with the reboot series also being developed around at the same time, I have a feeling that this movie is going to play right into that. Because why would Universal have 2 competing franchises under the same name? It just wouldn't make sense. And I would argue another science fiction property already did this prior. George Lucas beat them to the punch. Anyone remember Star Wars The Clone Wars? Now, to be fair, that movie was originally supposed to be like four episodes of the television series, but they decided to release it as a movie anyway to build up hype for the series. And that show ran for, 5 seasons on Cartoon Network. The 6th season, the unfinished 6th season, went to Netflix as Star Wars The Clone Wars The Lost Missions. And then Disney recently finished it all up with season 7 releasing onto Disney Plus. So if you see the reboot series following the movie, very similar to how the 2004 series followed the 2003 miniseries, it wouldn't shock me personally. And like I said, everyone talks about Battlestar Galactica being a holy grail in science fiction. It didn't become a holy grail until the 2004 series, but I've already brought that up, and I know I'm already retreading over old ground, and that's when I know that it's time to move on. And our 4th main topic is that, Quibi is finally dead. The streaming service that was founded by Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman. Jeffrey Katzenberg, most of you would probably know as the K in DreamWorks SKG. S was Spielberg, K was Katzenberg, and I don't remember what the G was, so don't ask me. And it only launched about 6 months ago. I think they said that they're shutting down the service on December 1st of this year, and it raised close to $2 billion in funding, but didn't attract any subscribers. Surprise, surprise there. Now, the idea itself behind Quibi was not a terrible idea. You have the high quality shows with episodes that are not exceeding 10 minutes. I do think that there is a market for, the shorter form content. But here's the main issue with Quibi, in that it only launched on mobile devices. You couldn't get it on Hulu. You couldn't get it on your Amazon Fire Stick, your PlayStation 4, your Xbox One, whatever you use for your streaming. Oh yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch all this shit off my 2-inch smartphone screen. Ooh, I'm getting the best experience ever. And companies like Disney, NBC Universal, and Warner Media invested in the service. I don't know why, because Disney has Disney Plus, NBC Universal has released Peacock, and Warner Media has HBO Max. Why would they want to invest into Quibi? It just made no sense. Now Quibi is trying to sell off the shows to other companies at this point to hopefully, recoup their losses. Now, most shows on Quibi were rejected by other streaming services before going to Quibi. That's what I heard and read before the news that they're finally shutting down. And Katzenberg couldn't resist, blaming the poor timing of the launch for its failure. The timing plays a part in that, sure, but also they limited themselves with just saying we are only releasing to mobile devices and nothing further. Yes, it worked for Instagram, but Instagram is the exception, not the rule. YouTube basically does what Quibi already did. The only difference between YouTube and Quibi at this point was that, Idris Elba and Chrissy Teigen had shows on Quibi instead of YouTube. Ooh, big fucking deal. If you're gonna limit yourself, then no surprise that, your service is gonna die before it's out of the gate. That's like taking the 12-gauge shotgun. All right, you're at the start line for the 100-meter dash. You take a 12-gauge shotgun, point straight down, shoot yourself in the foot, and then hope to get first place in the race. It ain't ever gonna happen. So before I drag this out for too long, let's get into our next main topic for this episode of TMRP. Our next main topic this week is that CBS is actually shortening the length of their seasons for at least their scripted TV shows. This doesn't include, shows like Survivor, The Amazing Race, Big Brother, all the reality TV shows. Now, this announcement is just for CBS's in-house shows. So shows like FBI, where they only have distribution and they have all those, Chuck Lorre comedies, stuff like The Big Bang Theory. I don't know what he's doing now. I know that he tried to produce that one show for Netflix with Kathy Bates, and it didn't go very well. But it's assumed that they're going to follow the same model, where they're going to have, 16 to 18 episodes, this season. And yeah, since production started later than expected, the episode counts are going to be smaller, and for good reason. So, shows like Blue Bloods, NCIS, Bull, Magnum PI, NCIS New Orleans, and SEAL Team are all going to have a 16-episode season for 2020 to 2021. And it has been announced that NCIS LA and The Neighborhood, I think that's a sitcom, will have 18 episodes, and The Unicorn is still set for 13 episodes for its second season. And according to the Hollywood Reporter article, that's actually normal for a CBS show to only get 13 episodes for a second season. But whatever, and I actually argue that this makes total sense from a business standpoint, because CBS doesn't want these 20 to 22 episode seasons to run into those summer months, because traditionally the summer is when the TV ratings usually decline. And that's why there's much more emphasis on the fall release schedule and the spring release schedule. And the summers, they just take off and show reruns, because if you're not going to make any money off of them, well, you might as well make some money off the reruns. Now, and I argue that for some shows, this is going to be to their benefit, like crime dramas and sitcoms, which is what CBS mostly produces because they're cheap. Some shows, really need these, 20 to 22 episode seasons, your Star Treks of the world. And I can't really think of anything else that really needs it. The stuff that's, very, very character driven. But, for cop procedurals and sitcoms, a sitcom is like a joke a minute, and a cop procedural is, okay, we solved this case this week, now on to the next. So, why do you need 22 episodes again? Well, probably just to, pad out the release schedule. And this is actually going to be cheaper for CBS, knowing that they don't have to produce as much content. And, if this proves successful for them, I think that they should keep, going forward, especially with the cop procedurals and the sitcoms, because I would argue that the 20 to 22 episode season for those is actually more of a detriment than a benefit to them at this point. But anyway, I don't want to tangent for too long here, so I'm just gonna move on, and I'm gonna move on to the fact that Saved by the Bell, NBC Universal launched the trailer for the Saved by the Bell revival on Peacock. Now, as of right now, Mark Paul Gosselaar, Mario Lopez, and Elizabeth Berkley are set to return. Mark Paul Gosselaar is not going to be in a good majority of the show just because he's also on the show Mixed-ish. So, but Mario Lopez and Elizabeth Berkley are set to return, and they are going to be in every episode of the first season, at least those first 10 episodes. Now, I looked on the IMDb page for this series, and Tiffany Thiessen, the actress who played Kelly Kapowski, right now is not set to return as of the recording of this episode, despite being married to Zach Morris, and also despite the fact that she's even in the trailer. So why is she not on the IMDb page? That to me makes no sense. And now the show basically goes as follows. Apparently Zach Morris becomes governor of California and closes most of the underfunded schools. So the students get absorbed into high schools like Bayside High in the more rich and affluent areas. And right away, just from that description, I already know where this show is going. And the trailer to me didn't look like a sitcom in the style that Saved by the Bell was, which was, shot live in front of a studio audience, live studio laughter. And I apologize, guys. It's currently raining where I live, so if it comes through, I apologize for that, but I'm not going to stop the show until there's a power outage and they force me to stop it. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah, the sitcom and the style of that Saved by the Bell was in front of the live studio audience, and ha 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 ha. And what I think that they're aiming for is like the sitcom without a laugh track type of thing. And I think that this comes from the fact that the showrunner was a writer on 30 Rock, but I don't think it works for a show like Saved by the Bell, because in the trailer you also see the whole timeout, and then you talk to the audience with all the actors freezing in place. That only worked because it was shot in front of a live studio audience. With this, being a sitcom without a laugh track, why are they still doing the whole timeout? It doesn't make any sense. And I would actually argue that nostalgia only reaches so far. And the perfect example of nostalgia is that, Max actually returns for this revival series, despite only being in maybe the first couple of seasons and then never mentioned again. Obviously, the head of the diner, that was also the magician. And I don't think people are going to go to Peacock just for this, Saved by the Bell revival. Now, for those that don't remember, there were a couple of spin-off shows to Saved by the Bell. You had Saved by the Bell The College Years, which only lasted one season and was god-awful, and Saved by the Bell The New Class. Now, the latter actually ran longer than the original series and saw the return of Dennis Haskins as Mr. Belding and Dustin Diamond as Screech Powers. Now, personally, I didn't watch Saved by the Bell till I was about 18, and I just came across it by sheer accident. I think I was watching MeTV, and they were showing like old reruns of it, and I don't think that it's held up very well. And one last question I want to ask for the Saved by the Bell revival is, who is this being aimed at? Is it being aimed at the people who watched Saved by the Bell growing up? Well, I don't know, given the fact that most people who grew up watching Saved by the Bell are probably in their 30s, some even pushing into their 40s now. So why would they want to watch a revival of Saved by the Bell where, not a lot of the original cast is in it, and you're still dealing with a whole lot of high school bullshit? Could you have done this show without calling it Saved by the Bell and just, have it set within the, quote unquote same universe type shit? But, a lot of TV shows have already explored that idea, and I apologize, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. All of you are probably going to scream at me in the comments going like, well, what about show A versus show B? And, great, because I think all the Sherwood Schwartz shows actually all took place within like the same continuity, but don't quote me on that. So if it's not being made for the audience that grew up on Saved by the Bell, then who is this show really even being made for? And that's the inherent problem with all of these revivals. We saw it with Will and Grace, and Roseanne, and I think there were a couple of other noteworthy. Netflix I think brought back One Day at a Time, and Freeform recently brought back Party of Five. And for those that don't remember Party of Five, that's the show where Matthew Fox from the TV show Lost got insanely known. But a lot of problems with these revivals are people go back and watch the original series and they realize that the originals just simply don't hold up like they used to. And I think you really started to see this trend right around the time of Fuller House. They really started this, this revival trend when in Fuller House, all they basically did was, DJ is the new Danny Tanner, Stephanie is the new Uncle Jesse, and Kimmy is the new Joey. Yeah, I saw the first couple of seasons of Fuller House and I thought it was crap. I then tried to go back and rewatch the original Full House and I just even realized like, wow, the comedy in this is pretty cringy by today's standards. And I feel this exact same way about Saved by the Bell. But I don't know. Personally, I'm not too excited for Saved by the Bell. I don't know if you are. If you're excited for this revival, great, good for you. I'm personally not going to lose any sleep over it. But before this is all doom and gloom, let's move on to our final news topic this week. And I saved this one for last for a very specific reason. And that topic is Assassin's Creed, is a live action series based on the Assassin's Creed video game franchise, is currently in development at Netflix. Now, Netflix had made a deal with Ubisoft to develop projects surrounding the Assassin's Creed franchise. The first of those projects is a live action series that is now in development and in need of a showrunner. And personally, I think that this is being done because of the success of The Witcher with Henry Cavill, which already has a prequel spin-off series in the works. And let's be honest, Netflix has been canceling a bunch of these fucking shows left, right, up, down, and center. But they can't cancel a show like The Witcher because The Witcher has global appeal. And I think Netflix also just acquired the rights to the Resident Evil series, and Resident Evil as a game franchise has worldwide appeal. Same with Assassin's Creed. And now, personally, the reason I saved this for the very end is because, personally, I've been a very big Assassin's Creed fan since Assassin's Creed Revelations came out in 2011. And yes, I've played every single mainline entry. The only Assassin's Creed game I have not played are the Assassin's Creed Chronicles games, where those were like the 2.5D side-scrollers. I think one was in China, one was in Russia, and another one was in India. Now, I do plan on getting the newest game, that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and that's going to release on November 10th. And depending on when I get Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I might do a first impressions video on that just because I am such a big fan of the series. But I don't know. I'm not making any commitments to that right now. Now, getting back to the Netflix series, my biggest fear with the Netflix series is this is going to fail just like the movie with Michael Fassbender and Jeremy Irons did. The movie completely ignored the lore of the video games. It turned the Animus into something that it wasn't. And as soon as I saw that in the trailer, I was completely turned off by it. And no, I have not seen the movie. This is not a review of the movie. But if they're going to fuck around with the Animus the way they did and deviate so far from the game, what else did the movie do that deviated too far away from the video game? Now, with regards to the showrunner of the show, they need to get somebody who understands the heart of this franchise, the heart and soul of it. So why not get Patrice Desilets as the showrunner at this point? Now, for those who don't know, Patrice Desilets was the developer behind the first game, Assassin's Creed 2, and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was the last one he ever worked on. Netflix should be looking to win over those hardcore fans of Assassin's Creed, and the game series, to a lot of fans, have been missing him. A lot of people say that Assassin's Creed 3 was like the turning point when the franchise went to shit. I actually didn't mind Assassin's Creed 3. I actually argued that when the franchise went to shit was Assassin's Creed 4. And everybody praised that fucking game to the high heavens. Oh my god, best Assassin's Creed game ever, blah, blah, blah. Despite the fact that it's a fucking pirate game with the Assassin's Creed name just slapped on it. You know, and I've actually grown to like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag over the years, but I like it as a pirate game, but as an Assassin's Creed game, it fucking sucks, in my opinion. Now, in regards to the game series, just to show you how popular the Assassin's Creed series is all over the world, not just here in the United States, the game series has 11 mainline entries. That would be Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed Revelations, where 2 Brotherhood and Revelations are actually a trilogy. Then you have Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Rogue, Assassin's Creed Unity, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Assassin's Creed Origins, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And again, this is, you know, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to be the 12th main entry, but that's not releasing for a couple of weeks. And all of those games combined have sold over 155 million copies over 11 games, basically making the Assassin's Creed franchise one of the best-selling gaming franchises, not only in the world, but probably one of the best-selling gaming franchises in history. I don't know other game franchises that have beat it. I didn't look that up yet. I think Pokemon actually has them beat because, you know, the developers behind Pokemon, believe it or not, are more wealthy than the Walt Disney Company. We're actually wealthier than the Walt Disney Company. I think the people behind Pokemon had a valuation of like $93 billion, even back in 2019, when Disney had a valuation of about $70 billion. So yes, you know, if you're going to talk about, big corporations owning everything, you know, look at the people that own Pokemon. They had more money than the Walt Disney Company ever did. But before I tangent about Pokemon, before I tangent off, talking about Pokemon too much, I'm probably going to watch the show just because I am a big fan of Assassin's Creed. But understand that I do have a bias in the sense that I am a very big fan of the video games. I am a big fan of the games first. So if you deviate too much from the lore, then why are you even bothering calling it Assassin's Creed? And I would argue that the show needs to do what the movie did, in the sense of creating a brand new assassin in a completely different period in history, instead of making a show around Ezio Auditore da Firenze, Altair, Arno, Connor, the Fry twins, etc. Because the moment that you tie the live action series to the video games, if I have to play Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations to watch this live action series, I wouldn't have a problem with it personally. But what if there's, average, Netflix watchers, don't want to do it? Well, then you've already alienated a good portion of your audience that are not fans of the video games, that are never going to play the video games to begin with. And to my knowledge, I think the Witcher series on Netflix is more based on the books and not the games that are developed by CD Projekt Red. So if there's anything that the show needs to do, they need to deviate from the games to a degree, but still keep the heart and the spirit of that game franchise moving forward. And guys, that is going to do it for this week's episode of TMRP. If you would like to follow me, I do have an official blog that is metropolisradio.blogspot.com. If you want to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Metropolisk. That is a capital M, lowercase e, T-R, capital O, lowercase b, E-L-I-S-K. If you absolutely hate Twitter, which I do not fucking blame you, I am also over on Parler with the exact same handle, @Metropolisk. And lastly, if you enjoy the content that I produce, then subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the BitChute channel. It's a small click for you, but for a small channel like mine, it actually does help out a lot. It's, there's a reason why a lot of your, favorite creators actually say that. Like, comment, and share only if you want to. And that's going to do it for this week, guys. So I will see you next time.